All right, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Senpai Kohai podcast. I'm your co-host Trey Sean. I'm joined tonight by Steven. Steven, what it do, big baby? How you doing?
I'm exhausted this evening, but that's okay because we're here to have fun and talk about shit I love,
Oh, good, good.
especially the shit I love tonight. So, are you gonna hit me with questions this time around, or are we gonna be doing some Reddit answers again? Like, did you just ignore that altogether?
You know what's crazy? You get caught up in the moment, Jimbo. You get caught up in the heat of the moment. I believe we did have one question on our Reddit. I am going to go ahead and pull that up real quick. I'm pretty bad now, man. I forgot about that completely. Give
It's
me one
okay.
second.
I'll tease you mercilessly about it later.
Please do. Or you could tease me now. I already got it up, so we're good.
All right,
I'm pretty fast. So the
that's what she
question I
said.
got was from what she said. Anyway, so Alice the idiot. Well, that's rude. I don't may not be an idiot. Asked, "What is your least favorite part of weeb culture?" And I'm gonna
Mm.
let you, or
Actually,
I'll go
I'd like
first.
to hear your opinion.
Yeah,
I'd
I'll
like
go
to hear your
first
opinion first. Yeah.
because I kind of stewed on it for a bit, and I think my least favorite part of weeb culture is a lot of the, I guess, exclusivity
Oh,
and
like gatekeeping?
yeah, for weebity. If that's a word, I'm gonna put that somewhere.
Just own it,
Weebity.
man.
I
Own it. Just
am. I am.
that is your word.
Absolutely. People talking about, oh yeah, I just watched Jujutsu Kaisen, and then there's always the, I don't know, the Gen Z anime people that come in. Oh yeah, well, did you watch Sword Art Online? And it's like, you can't watch Jujutsu Kaisen unless you watch that, and then you get like the millennials like, oh yeah, well, if you didn't watch Dragon Ball V, you can't really watch none of that, and it's just, people that can casually watch or anything like that without having to do all these other prerequisite animes. Anime is a lot more casual without having to be gate kept by all these other things. I don't know. So sometimes it's aggressive conversations that I hear from
Really.
certain weebs. Oh yeah, and I don't know. It's an odd thing to listen in on.
So that's what's interesting to hear you. It's interesting to hear you say that because, in my opinion, it's actually a whole hell of a lot less gatekeeping than it was a long time ago. I remember talking about this with a friend of mine, and it was there's always going to be gatekeeping. It's an unfortunate side effect of fandom. It happens in all fandoms, really. But I feel like anime gatekeeping can be especially aggressive, a little intense, maybe because these people are extremely passionate and it feels like something they have to protect, which is an odd feeling to have about a hobby. But I do get passion. For me, it's weirder to hear that because when I was growing up, anime was not popular like it is now. Like I've told you many times on this podcast, you had to search for it. Most people didn't understand it, so they were kind of dismissive or sometimes rude about it. But in the same vein, I remember going to anime clubs and meeting fans who would actively like quiz you about what you were watching and if it was good enough for them. And that was such a weird experience for me because I was like, hey, we're supposed to all be coming together to watch shit we've never seen, talk about shows we've never seen. Like, we all have the same hobby. So why am I getting grilled about a show I may or may not have seen? Or even worse, the old conversations about, do you like the original ending of Evangelion or the movie endings of Evangelion? And boy, oh boy, some people would get upset about that. And that's what's weird to me. Why, like, and I feel like that held back anime fandom for a long time because there were a lot more people who actively would ridicule or kind of be rude to people who were getting into the hobby. And I can probably tell you there's several people I knew that started out kind of interested in anime, and some of the fans really scared them off. Like, I remember going to anime conventions a long time ago, and I'd have friends that would tag along in some cases, and I remember at one point there was a friend of mine that ended up just hanging out in the room. He's like, because he had just had so many bad experiences with people being rude to him. And like I said, I don't want to say that's like the entire fandom, but it was a little more common back in the day. And so I feel like a lot of people kind of stayed away from it because of that behavior they would encounter. And whereas, I feel a little bit more now, there's more resources. You have things like YouTube and Twitter. You have streaming services, so you don't have to worry about, can I afford to buy this series that everybody's recommending, or how am I going to do that? Do I need to go to an anime club like each week that they're showing the show? It was very hard to get a hold of stuff without either spending an arm and a leg or having to show up at some random location week after week, around your schedule. So it was tough. But gatekeeping is definitely one that I don't like. My side of things that I don't really like about weeb culture is a little bit of the kind of like creepiness. I like, that's the thing, is like, I get passion and that sort of thing. I keep saying that sort of thing. Oops. Um,
It's just that sort of thing. You don't have to
yeah,
worry about
yeah,
it.
absolutely. But I've met plenty of times. I've met fans that can be a little lost in the fantasy, a little too intense, and maybe I'm just not that extreme. Maybe I never have been. I don't know. I think there was a small window of time where I was a little lost in the fantasy, but I came out of it really quick. But I remember a specific story. I was traveling at one point when I was like in my 20s, and I was in the airport, and I was wearing an anime t-shirt, and I was reading a manga. And this guy came up to me. He's like, "Oh, you like anime and manga too? That's cool. What are you reading?" And it seemed like a pretty normal conversation, but then it kind of switched into this moment where he's like, "Hey, do you want to see a picture of my girlfriend?" One, I haven't really encountered a lot of people that want to show me pictures of their girlfriend, just because it's kind of like a personal thing, especially for strangers in an airport. But then he whipped out the picture, and it was a picture of Rei Ayanami from Neon Genesis Evangelion, and it became the most awkward moment that has ever existed for me, because I don't know what to tell a person who is showing me their anime girlfriend because they saw that I was reading manga. Like and that kind of intensity, I just sometimes it kind of puts me off a little bit. And I've heard plenty of horror stories from other people at cons, and just encountering those really like extreme kind of, like, I guess, socially awkward, intense fans. And I think that's my least favorite part of it. Now, like any fandom is going to have those people. Like, let's not even get into like bronies and that was another, like, supernatural fangirls are pretty intense too sometimes. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of times in anime culture, I've run into some awkward and uncomfortable situations.
Wow. I so my wife, she doesn't finish most TV shows she watches. She gets an anxiety about it when things end up coming to an end that she's been invested in a long time. She
Mhm.
gets this anxiety. And I think listening to your story, I finally got a piece of what that was. That
Mhm.
man, who I
Yeah, like you can feel the awkward from just
oh
hearing
yeah.
that story, right?
Oh
Like, I can't even tell you in words really how awkward it really was, because I try to be kind to everybody. I try to be respectful and polite.
yeah.
Um and there have been social interactions primarily associated around convention trips and anime fandom that have made me feel very uncomfortable, and I had no idea what to do. I remember it was the conversation in the story literally just kind of stopped because I didn't know. I said, "Oh, that's cool," and then nothing. So,
Yeah. Who
and I feel like in the same time, a lot of that is improved by more people being in the fandom that are a little more adjusted. When something gets more popular, there's more people for in it, so you can run into more of it. I think it just, your mileage may vary in terms of how much you encounter it, but I've encountered it quite a few times in my experience.
yeah. No, that's crazy. And I guess, one thing to keep in mind is, well, wearing an anime shirt does put a flag out for anime people to come talk to you.
Right. I mean, like, and actually, I think they've redesigned some of the anime apparel to be actually kind of stylish a little bit
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah.
There's some pretty good stuff. There, like, sponsor us. There's a company called Atsuko that I like some of their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're good stuff. I like them quite a bit, and there's some other stuff out there. I think they had like Junji Ito shirts at Hot Topic for a bit.
Ooh, I don't know if I'd wear a Junji Ito shirt. I don't
Uh,
know.
there's some pretty
Ah,
cool ones. There's some pretty cool
okay.
ones. I mean, they're a little gruesome, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I I, I don't want to tell. I don't want to explain one of the shirts because it will make me explain a Junji Ito story and ruin kind of the fun of a Junji Ito story. So
Yeah.
just, but they were pretty neat. They're mostly black with white accents, so they're kind of stylish in that line art sort of way. And
Yeah.
but I like that more anime apparel is more stylish these days, has more colors, because back in the day it was literally like slap some characters on a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt and call it a day. And a lot of times it was like really bad material that would scratch or make you sweat. And these days
Give you
it's
a
all
rash.
yeah. And
uh,
anytime you washed it, it pretty much just broke down almost immediately. But yeah, no, I'd say that's probably my least favorite side of the culture. And again, it's one of those cases where your mileage may vary. Like I said, it's not everybody. It's not a blanket generalization.
no, no, I'm glad I hadn't had an experience like that yet. Um, I can't put myself in your shoes.
Oh
I don't
man,
know what I would do because I'm a pretty blunt person, and
yes, you
like
are.
I can't hide expressions on my face very well. So if something happens, I am in trouble because
Yep,
it's whatever's going through my mind is also on my face. And
it
my wife,
absolutely is. There can be some times when we're around our friends and one of them might say something stupid or kind of like inappropriate, and you can just see your face instantly change. It's fantastic.
and it's
It's like I
bad.
know what Trey's thinking right now.
Yep. Oh no, not Trey.
Hope
So
no one noticed.
yeah, God. And I'd have to make an active effort to not like I have to see it coming. Like, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, stone face, and just roll with it. Yep. So let's get on to what we're actively doing. Steven, what are you playing right now? You got some
Oh,
games.
oh my lord! I did it. I pulled it
You
off at
did
the
do it.
last second.
You did
Yes,
do it
it was like what, like 2 hours before the book club meeting. I
before our meeting. Yep.
I I beat Fire Emblem Three Houses, like at least one of the storylines, in 1 week to finish the first half of our bet. And I was sweating because I was in the last day, I was in the last stretch, and I got to the last battle and fucked it up. Like I spent almost 45 minutes in that battle and got to the point where like most of my people were dead, and I was like, I just need to stop. We need to start over. And I was like, I lost 45 minutes. I only have a few hours left. Ah,
I
but
had a couple battles like that too, where it got real tense.
mhm.
Where you have to fight like a lot of golems or in the futuristic city parts. I don't remember what they were called, but like I messed up on my tactics. I sent
Yeah.
people where they shouldn't have gone. I used up all my divine pulses. I have to redo the battle, restart the switch.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, I beat it, and I've now started Atelier Ryza, which is my choice for the book club game. Like I said earlier, I was getting a little nervous that nobody's really kind of feeling it yet. I'm hoping it's just because they're only in the first hour. I love these types of games, and I think earlier I described it as a slice of life JRPG with crafting, and I realize that might cause some trouble with some of our players because some of us Trey, excuse me,
Specifically,
don't like slice of life. I think we've talked about it.
I do like slice of life. I just can't handle slice of life that doesn't go anywhere. I can't handle a day-to-day slice of life where it's just I'll see you at lunch tomorrow and that's it. I can't handle that. I need slice of life where oh my god, will they survive the treatment? And then like they survive
Oh,
the treatment. And that's what I need something to build up to.
oh boy. So I'm playing that. I put about I've put about an hour into it. So we're still in the tutorial zone, and you're just getting to know the characters and the environment, and you learn about alchemy existing. So we haven't, and I know you're not that far into it either. So you haven't even really hit the meat and potatoes of the game. So
Yeah.
I actually love the improved battle system in it. It's got a pretty fun, active kind of feel to it, but it's still turn based to a degree.
Yeah. Mhm.
And when we get to the part with the alchemy and like more of the story unlocking, I think there will be more to enjoy. um from what I understand, this is basically about Ryza and her discovery of alchemy and then the adventure she goes on once she started to learn alchemy. It's not nearly as like slice of lifey as say like Atelier Miruru and Atelier like Verona, where that whole like Arlen series, which is they're like one of their first earliest trilogies.
Mhm.
It was primarily about running an alchemy shop in most of the games, and so and it had a time limit on it, and none of the actual events of the game really had much in the way of stakes. So it was very much like, let's follow these girls around as they learn to make more items and talk with their friends, and we learn about what their friends care about. And I love that stuff, I do, but even I can admit that apparently this one has an actual story, doesn't have time limits, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it does to kind of update the formula. Hilariously enough, I was talking about this with my friend Brandon. For the most part, Atelier means shop. It's just a generic word for shop, I believe, in French. And so we made the joke that you never really actually run the shop, but the spin-off game, Nelky and the Alchemists of Legend or whatever it is, the
Yeah.
one where you actually do like the town management and you run the shops.
Hmm.
That's the only game you really run a shop in.
And that was like a city manager, right? Kind of, or
Yeah,
like a mass shop manager.
yeah.
That one looked cool. I just don't know enough about the franchise to do that one.
It's actually a pretty decent, fun city manager type game. That has most of its like real joy built in, like knowing the characters that are jumping in. So for me, fantastic. Might be a little mundane and kind of not so great for somebody that doesn't know the properties.
Yeah.
You'll just be like, these characters will talk a certain way and will react a certain way, and you won't understand any of it or why.
Right.
But yeah, no, I pretty much just do. I did Fire Emblem Three Houses and Atelier Ryza, and then Uno. I got Uno on my PC because I like to play Uno every once in a while.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
good at it. I'm good at
Yeah.
it. I'm fantastic at Uno.
Well, everyone can. All right. I'll leave it alone. All right.
I
So
thought you were blunt.
I I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. So yeah, Atelier Ryza has been a treat so far, of different taste. I really like the opening, and that kind of gave me a lot of hope to go into.
Hmm.
I liked seeing. I don't even know what to describe it as. You know, you see all her team come up, her and her three other people that are part of it, and what looks to be the good and the bad alchemist, kind of them facing off in the final bit of the kind of opening theme that they had, and I was like, that's something I can get behind. That
Yeah.
works for me because the other one I played, Atelier Lide and Swell, I believe is what it is. No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. No, that's
maybe
right. I just
okay.
it's such a weird name.
It's
Like,
horrible,
yeah,
horrible.
that entry was kind of. I was like, what is the names on this? Like Sue L. Okay.
Yeah, that one was not as fast paced as this one. I don't think it had the active time battle system,
Mm-mm.
and I think it took forever for things to kick off. And it was way more about building up alchemist rank in the city, and it was
Yeah.
just I was not a I wasn't doing good. And then finally, when I got bullied off Reddit for it, I was done.
Really?
Yeah, I
You
quit
got
on that.
bullied off of Reddit over that
Well,
game?
not off of Reddit, but I got bullied off a Reddit post from it. I was like, "How do I get off this?" And they were like, "Well, you know what the hell are you doing playing the third in a trilogy when you can play the
Oh,
other
that's
ones?" And I was
right.
like, "Yeah." So I quit on that, and I was like, "I'll just play a different one at some point." And then Ryza came out, and I was like, That's the one that should
That
be played."
that's the first in the game series. Is the first in the game trilogy because it's probably going to have a third game. It does already have a second game, and you get you get introduced to the characters in the system early on, so it's a little more approachable and without a
Yeah.
time limit on it. Like I think most of them up until Ryza had like every time you did something, it passed a certain amount of time, and the game ended at a certain date,
Hmm.
and so it would encourage you to go back and start a new game plus where you got to keep some of your stats and know how some of the things work, so you can craft things to get through stuff faster so you could unlock more of the story or activities that you could do. Like I played Atelier Maruru like 3 times to get to all of the content, and
You could miss out on story and
like
content.
they were like side stories really.
Ah.
If I'm being honest, like they weren't necessary for you to finish the game and get the majority of the main theme going,
Hmm.
but there were fun extra dungeons and stories and bosses. Like remember I told you like this back in those trilogies, it was mostly just kind of like watching them do normal things and go on like minor adventures.
Gotcha. I could see that, especially with what I saw from
So
Lead
what else
In
are you
Swell.
playing?
My final game that I'm playing, I gave up on. What was the other one? The one I was playing with
Shining
the music.
Resonance?
Yeah, I gave up on that again. I gave up on it the first time because it was so uninteresting of a game. And then I re-downloaded it and I was like, why did I even quit this? And then I started playing again. And I was like, oh, that's right. It's so uninteresting. And so I deleted it. I've gotten all the trophies I can get in my Origami King, so I deleted that. There's one left. I think only one more I can't get, only out of personal skill. I suck. It's like it's like a river run thing. I have to go get all these coins, and I don't have the patience for that. I've gotten all the hard stuff. I did the meat and potatoes. I'm not getting the carrots. Um, but I'm still playing Final Fantasy VII. I am
Oh yeah.
almost done with Disc 2. I've completed most of my side quest. Um, the only thing I'm worried about is I'm about to have to start grinding because I've gotten almost everyone's items for their limit breaks or their final limit breaks. I've gotten most of the ultimate weapons. Now I just have to go fight all the big weapons themselves, like ruby,
Yeah.
emerald, platinum, or not platinum, diamond
Diamond.
is actually my next story when I gotta fight. Um, and then I gotta go get all my summons, and it's so fun. It's I think what really makes it great though for me is how fast it is, because I'm playing it at 3 times speed, and so I get to enjoy the story. And I'm like, wow, man, this is cool. I don't want to spoil anything for it because it's just so good. But then when I have to run through the world and fight, it is everyone is blitzing across the screen, and
Oh yeah.
I'm just moving it super fast, and it's so good. I'm like 25 hours in, and it's phenomenal.
I think the speed up option was a huge benefit to several RPGs, and you know, the especially with Final Fantasy VII, because it could slog down a little bit if it with random battles if you didn't have that. But now you can put it up to 3 speed and be like, bam, 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 done.
I can't imagine not having 3 times speed, like having to travel in the high wind in the submarine and just not have combat. You're just floating around, just hoping you get there, and I can't imagine that. That
Do
seems
you watch
awful.
YouTube videos at higher speeds as well?
No, I don't.
Oh, good
I
for
may.
you.
I may just because I want to be efficient. I want to be.
I've heard of people that do that shit, and I don't know how I feel about it. It sounds like a cool concept, but I don't know. To me, so when it comes to video content, I actually think timing is important. So if you speed it up, I feel like it kind of takes away some of the like oomph, the impact
The
of the time.
original, yeah.
Yeah, like I think it takes something away. I get it, but I also have like friends that talk about how they play video games while watching YouTube videos and having anime on in the background, and I'm like, I don't know how anybody does that. Like I feel like you don't actually enjoy any of the things you're trying to smash together to be efficient with your time, which is a lot of people tell me it's like, well, you know, I don't want to waste any time. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not actually engaging and enjoying that time if you're trying to do it all at once, because you can't give it the full attention and love it deserves, and for yourself, for that matter.
No, by all means. When I was binging Yu Yu Hakusho and Batman, I was I was grinding through some game at that time, and that was a game that I could put those on, and I'd put like
Mm-hmm.
Funimation right there next to my screen, and so I would just run through fight stuff, or I was running through doing activities like cleaning up a game. I don't remember what it was, but that was something I didn't have to dedicate. I barely dedicated maybe 20% of my attention to the game, and like I could primarily kind of just watch what was going on.
Oh,
But
I see
like
what you're talking about. So basically, like the kind of the mundane task to grind in an RPG or something like that, where
that's the
you're
yeah,
just hitting X the whole time. Okay, I could see that. You know, I'd buy that. I'd buy
that's the
that.
only thing I could see doing that too. But like I couldn't dedicate what brand playing a brand new game fresh off, like playing Atelier Ryza and then putting a new anime right there and saying I'm doing
Hmm.
both. That's not genuine. You're not doing that. I can't. If I ask you a question, you can tell me what was going on in both right now.
So I got one more question for you,
Oh,
or I guess a topic before we get to our main topic today.
okay.
Um, so how do you feel about listening to music while you play games? Do you feel like you miss out on the music of the game if you listen to music, or does it depend on the game? Like, what do you think about that?
I don't listen to music when I play games. If I
So the soundtrack and the dialogue is pretty much what you're listening to when you play.
if I'm not listening to a podcast, I'll listen to the game. It all depends. If I've gone through my podcast of the weeks or of the
Hmm.
week, then I'm listening to the game.
Really? So your primary listening when you're playing games is the podcast?
I'll normally let them play. I'll put my phone on my desk and I'll just sit there and play.
I mean, I actually think that's kind of cool. I've done stuff similar. The reason I asked this is because, you know, some of our friends talk quite a bit about how much they enjoy the music in certain games.
Hmm.
And sometimes I will listen to other music while I play games, and I wonder if I'm missing out on something, like, or maybe there's something wrong with me and I don't actually like a lot of the music I play, like in the games I play. I, like, because I listen to other things instead of to the game experience. Now, on the flip side, when I was playing Fire Emblem for the first time, I listen to a lot of the soundtrack and the dialogue because it's fully voiced, and I don't know. For me, like, I think it's a little kind of rude to have people put in this work for all this dialogue and experience, and you're like, whatever, fuck off, I don't care, and turn on your music.
Yeah.
So it's a weird feeling to have for me to have people be like, this music on this game is amazing, and I'm just like, yeah, I was just listening to Moe Shop.
If I feel like it does really depend on the game and the quality of the studio, but for the most part, most video game music isn't that great. It's a lot of it is meant to be generic background stuff just to fill noise. Like
Hmm.
no one's out here making Persona 5 tracks all the time. That's
Hmm.
not I don't know. Like there I couldn't listen to the Fire Emblem pieces all the time. But there's like two or three tracks during the fights where it was epic.
Hmm.
They had those choirs working and it was intense. I loved it. But it just I feel like when I notice the music, that's a good thing. But other than that, it's rare.
I think for me, I try to give it at least one listen while I'm playing through. But if it's that cycling through over and over and over and over and over, I tend to switch into like podcast music gear. There are clearly some songs that really are amazing and deserve attention. A lot of the Persona 5 music is fantastic. It's a feeling. And somebody on YouTube or Twitter, no, somebody on Twitter put this shit in my head last night, and I think and hate them at the same time. They suggested Persona 6 set in the 80s with an entirely city pop soundtrack. And I can't tell you how much I want that. Like,
Wow.
1980s Japan, like city pop, like the rain and the mood, and just like that would make Steven happy in a way I can't tell you.
No balls, Atlas. No balls. They
But
won't
it's
do it.
just, yeah, no, they won't. Absolutely not. So like, I'm sad that won't exist. And that's why I say I think and hate them at the same time. But there is like I think there's some exceptions to the rule in terms of like game soundtracks. Nobuo Uematsu's work is fantastic. One of my favorite Nobuo Uematsu tracks is from the game you're playing right now, and I believe it's the one of the battle themes. It's those who fight further from Final Fantasy VII.
Mm. I feel
Uh,
like Final Fantasy is different though. That's I don't. It's a franchise with what is the word prestige to it, I guess,
mm-hmm.
where you're getting something music wise. That is a well established man that's making his music. I don't know if he's an orchestra director or what musician. He's a well established musician.
Yeah, well, he's a music
Mm,
writer.
yeah.
He writes music, but I think if I recall correctly, he also has a band called the Black Mages that did essentially like live rock band performances of like some of his music from Final Fantasy. And the sad thing is it's really hard to find that stuff on YouTube now. I think it got like copyright hit or whatever the case is,
Mm,
because they have like a version of Those Who Fight Further that the Black Mages played. But most of the stuff is basically like sourced out to like orchestral work and things like that. So
yeah.
it's weirder to me that I think that he came all the way from like doing stuff on like lower graphics and sound options, like MIDI music. Yeah.
I don't know. He made that battle on the big bridge, and
God
that song
damn,
goes
that song
too
hits.
hard.
So this, okay, I'm gonna say one more thing. We're gonna get to RPGs because we're kind of like RPG adjacent right now. But there was way back in the day, I think it was like in the mid 2000s. There was a album release called Square Dance, and it basically took a bunch of like Square RPG music, and then they partnered with like some dance and techno music artists to make those like electronic versions of famous Square music. So from Chrono Trigger. No, okay, so this sounds terrible, right?
Yeah, this sounds horrid.
It sounds terrible. Not at all, because they didn't like add lyrics or anything to it. They just kind of had different like vibes going. So they had like a really cool sort of like atmospheric low tone electronic stuff for a Chrono Trigger song. They had a like an electric jazz kind of style for a Final Fantasy VI song. And it's stuff from Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasies, I think Secret of Mana, like a bunch of different stuff. I don't know how easy it will be to find that. I think I had to search for like an entire week to try to see if I could find a digital download of that, like somewhere on a BitTorrent site somewhere. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at it in a long time because I have it in my hard drive, so I don't have to try too hard anymore.
No, I'm gonna see what I can do to find. Oh,
Yeah.
Project Majestic Mix Square Dance. Oh boy, is a fan.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
that's a fan made one. I'm gonna look into this. I may
Yeah.
update on that,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
if it's all right, I'll be excited for that. If I could find some good remixes of Battle on the Bridge, then I'll be okay. Cause that shit does bang.
Mm-hmm.
So before we do get to the meat and potatoes, I know we keep blue balling for this subject. What are you watching?
Oh shit, that's right. I have been watching Fina Pirate Princess, which
I still gotta start that.
it's
Damn
like
it.
up to episode 5 now. It's a solid watch so far. We're starting to kind of drip in some info that makes you go like, okay, so what's the story behind where she comes from? What is, you know, and who are these other people chasing? Because it seems like she's important for some reason, and there are people chasing her that she doesn't know about that keep saying like, you don't even know who you are, and it's very atmospheric. I think the pacing's pretty well done. The comedy is actually really well done and subtle. So there's, and I think it's episode 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly which one. They're chasing, they have this like kind of like special gem or like kind of glass thing that they're trying to find out where it got made. So they end up finding out where it got made, so they go there to see if they can find out more information about it. And I'm not going to spoil like what the actual details of what it is, because it's fucking awesome. But they get there, and one of the people that helps them is this like blonde woman that's clearly hitting on the like very stoic kind of like main guy that she likes. And and they keep commenting on it while they're like following this woman around, and she's like helping them and stuff like that. They're like, she totally wants to do him. Like it's like if we stay the night, she's gonna sneak into his bed. It was really, and she, of course, like Fina is of course like getting jealous and falling over herself, like oh god, I can't compare it to this stacked ass woman, like she got an ass. Like I think they even make a comment about like the curvaceousness of her behind. And it's solid actual funny to me. And they also do like a really funny scene where I don't know, I think it's called it's not Shiratori is the word game. But you ever seen the game that they play in Japan where it's like the vertical lines, and then you draw the horizontal lines, and somebody, you put the name of like a person on each of the vertical lines, and you go down and across over and over until you get to the bottom.
I
God,
don't
what is
think
the name?
so.
I'll have to figure out what the name of that game is, but it's basically a way to randomly choose a group of people, like who in this case they were deciding who stays on the submarine to watch it, and everybody else goes into town. And apparently the main guy that Fina likes is Yakimaru, I think is his name. He always loses, and so he has an obsession with making the map so that he can possibly go into the port town, because he's never gone because he loses every time. And so he shows up like all dramatic. He's like, I have a new one. And like they still do it, and he still loses. And so he's on the freaking top of the submarine, like on hands and knees, just like, why? And he's not like kind of like cartoonish in that moment. So it's funny because of how serious he is. And the story and the characters are a lot of fun. The characters are really, really fun. Each one of them has kind of fun, unique personalities. To me, it's actually one of the best shows we got out right now, between animation quality, character development, and character, I guess, like their actual like behavior and kind of energy level. Like the energy level on the show is fantastic, and the music is great too. So I can't recommend it enough. I say check it out. My other one is I'm keeping up with Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which I still So that show, like, clearly Kyoto Animation has only so many episodes they can go before they're like, let's animate a battle that really has no real point of being here. And that's because in the most recent episode, I think Toru and Elma like have a freaking battle, and it turns out just because they want to be closer to each other. So
Yeah.
but it's also like superbly animated. I think they're out in like a desert and people are watching, and they're just like blowing shit up and beating on each other like real hardcore. And but it's interesting. It's well animated. I don't know. I still feel like Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is good, but kind of mid at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that because there's points where it's fun for the slice of life parts, but then like on its harem half, I feel like it's kind of falling short this time. But we're not
Mm-hmm.
really introducing a lot of characters, and it's not going anywhere. It's just everyone's getting in their life. It's just a continuation of days, and I find myself questioning, what am I watching this for? And then Luco comes in, and I remember what I'm watching this for.
Oh yes, your sweet love of Shota.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So
So I'd say that. Oh, and my personal favorite. I don't know if you've heard of this show.
go ahead, please. Go ahead. Actually, before you even say it, I'm actually seeing a lot of promotion on certain pages that I see of some redheaded waifu from Iruka,
Yeah, a
and
Mary.
and I am getting swayed,
That
to
girl is
start.
so great. I love her character. Okay, so without really spoiling too much, is like so in this show, Welcome to Demon School Arumakun. If those of you that haven't heard me mention the show every episode, the show I'm really still watching is Welcome to Demon School Arumakun.
Wait, it's a
And
demon school?
yeah, it's a demon school.
Oh no, we can't. I can't watch that.
Oh, sorry, you're a Christian, right?
I'm a
Is that what it
Christian.
is? That was great. I've seen your waifu folder. I know you're not a
Oh
Christian.
no, that's my scheduling. It's scheduling for the podcast.
I'm not gonna lie, I loved your list of weaknesses, and the fact that like 50% of it is the same shit I have, like well endowed anime girls was one of them.
It's just something that stops me dead in my tracks. Whoa.
Uh, get that Sonic stopping sound
That's
like from the old games.
the leg
Uh,
stop.
yeah. But so she is a great character because I like her character. She's actually where I enjoy a lot of the comedy because she's such a serious, upstanding like student council president, but she has all this manga from the human world, and she refers to it as the forbidden texts. And it's so funny because it's actually like a shoujo manga that's like way too long for its own good, and they have a lot of fun making jokes off of it. But and it turns out, so I was watching the show, and this is great, like just narrative. What is it that Daryl always says? Was it Ludo?
Ludonarrative dissonance.
Yes. So it shows her kind of going into these delusions of imagining how these like shoujo situations pop up, and with like Aruma, and like actually reading the stories. Like he actually goes and reads the manga to her because he knows Japanese, of course. And so it's this whole thing. But she keeps having these weird delusions about it. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. That's funny. Like it just seems like fun comedy. And you get into the second season and they have a battle, and every demon has basically what's called a bloodline trait, and it's kind of each one of their specific powers associated with what kind of person they are. And you come to find out her bloodline trait is maximum delusion. So if she believes hard enough in her delusion, she makes it reality. Like, so if she thinks she's strong enough to fight a dragon just by giving it kicks in the face, she does it. So like in the story, she starts singing her own theme song while she's fighting this monster and gets stronger because of it. Like it's
Wow.
wild. And I'm like, what? So her delusions are just part of like who she is as a demon, and it actually her powers are based off of that. That's amazing to me. I was like, what? Mind blown, kind of thing. It was a lot of fun.
That's
I
pretty
enjoy
cool.
I enjoy the show. Like, because the thing is, once they get past the initial stuff of kind of introducing the main trio and some of the like overworld, like overall story elements, like some of the antagonists and things like that, they introduce all the other outcast classmates and start going into each of their bloodline traits and how they use it. And this show literally is actually a really good kind of almost shonen-ish show, but then blends in comedy really well. And I still like, I know I've probably talked about this show way too much. Even I think I've talked about it way too much, but I love it. And I can't tell people enough about it. Like, that's, sad. It's like, it comes up on most popular on Crunchyroll all the time, and no one has licensed the manga.
Hmm.
Not and the first season of the anime, no one has licensed it. It's so disappointing to me. It is such a great experience, and I really feel like the fandom doesn't give it enough attention.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I
Anyways,
didn't know
so
anyone had licensed her. That's
not that
that's
I'm
odd.
aware of. Not that
Yeah.
I'm aware of. So what are you watching? Like, my three right now I'm doing.
So, for me, my anime is the Saga of Tanya the Evil. I got one episode in on that, and it was so good. Oh my god, it was just what the doctor ordered. I talked to my brother about it. He was like, "Well, you got this one or Lupin," and I was like, "Okay, well, I think I'm gonna try Saga of Tanya," and Tanya was great.
So
Um,
he's reading the novels right now, isn't he?
I think he has most of them. He's a real big fan of the series.
Yeah, because I remember when we got together for the LTIT, he was he was reading the novel, and I was like, ooh, I kind of want to pay attention to that, but then I got distracted, so I was like, oh, I'll ask him next time I see him.
So I'm not able to keep up with it though for a minute.
Mm,
So I normally ingest quite a few cartoons in my spare time as well, depending on my company. So like I normally say I'm watching Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. It's been a while since I've gotten to watch that. My wife, my mother-in-law watches our baby. Um, they aren't fans of Billy and Mandy. That's just kind of I don't think most grown people are.
yeah. I hate to admit it. There is a good significant portion of the older generation, which I'm quickly becoming a part of, unfortunately, that does not enjoy animation. I'm hoping to be like the first like generation of old people that is like, fuck yeah, animation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get it. I get it. Like, if I tried to show my mom a regular show once, and I think she was like, I don't know what's going on.
I don't get it. What's a rugby? Why is he a raccoon? And so
That's just so much of like the every video game is a Nintendo kind of thing.
it's
I
I
love it.
hate it.
I
I
love
hate
it.
it.
I love it. It's great.
But so when they're around, I'm not watching Billy and Mandy. I'm watching The Proud Family. Just because it's on my queue on my Disney Plus, and I want to go through that one. They've got a ton of good cartoons on Disney Plus. I want to go through, and I am 3/4 done with its 50 episodes,
Oh wow.
and I like it, and I hate it. Um, so the Proud Family has a lot of big name people that come in on that show.
Yeah.
Like they had Gabrielle Union, Cedric the Entertainer is almost in every other episode kind of guy. It just a lot of big name actors and actresses come in on the show. And one thing that just confuses me is why the show just looked like shit like the whole time. Like there are parts where they don't animate all the way. They don't animate at all. They just put their stills up, and like sometimes or Oscar the dad, he'll start talking, and then they won't animate him going to his resting pose. It's just instant transition, and it's horrible. It's
Kind
very
of like a
appalling
motion
to see.
comic kind of thing.
Kind of, I don't
Like,
know.
are we talking Way of the House Husband kind of style? Like,
I
have you
haven't
watched that?
no, but I've heard that's pretty egregious in its
It,
animation.
the thing is I actually don't mind it so much because Way of the House Husband is actually really funny. My biggest problem with it is own the fact that it's a motion comic. Because the thing is, the manga is fantastic. It's got great atmosphere and things like that. If that's what you wanted to do, own it. But it's also kind of misleading at times to do that whole thing where it's like it looks like it's going to be completely motioned and it's not. Anyways,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I think I see. I think I know what you mean. No, this is not a motion comic. No, this was a cartoon,
it
like
just has
straight up.
but it has very like kind of abrupt animation changes, I guess.
Yes, or just I don't know if they just lost some pictures that they were supposed to work with or what, but
You're gonna have to show me this. Like, I'd like to see like a visual representation. Maybe I'll look it up on YouTube a little bit.
oh yeah, I can find it. God, I've watched some scenes like 4 or 5 times. Just why did that look bad? And I see it, like, oh, there wasn't a transition there. It was just weird. But I like the Proud Family for the casting and everything that's in it, and the fact that they were able to get all these people on board. But I just don't understand why it looked bad. But it's good stuff.
Yeah, is
It's
it funny?
funny. Yeah. Oh
Okay,
yeah. It's got
that's the
some.
important thing.
It's got some real good funny like moments. That most of it's between like the dad and he's just an idiot. They really count on him to sell most of the stuff. Um,
I love a good idiot character. Like, you got the straight man characters, but you need the idiot.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. This one falls into it pretty good. It's got a good family thing going on. So now that we're done with games and anime, we can finally stop tickling with all this foreplay. We can get into what we're here to talk about. That's
Which is
RPGs.
RPGs. Yeah. Woo.
Yes, sir. I will. I have a couple actually genres here to kind of delve into, but I'll kind of let you lead us in.
Okay.
Um, if you want to kind of give us the rundown on RPGs.
Absolutely. So RPGs is a subject I love bringing up. I'm a huge fan of JRPGs, but that does not mean I do not play other RPGs. And I think that's one of the interesting things about modern gaming and, well, hobby activities in general is RPGs are pretty commonly used in a lot of different things. Sorry, that sounds really vague. So there's more,
It's a vague genre or a
isn't
vague
it?
area. There's a
It's
lot of sub genres, sub settings, sub everything that goes into RPG
Yeah,
if you have to
so like
classify them.
let's hit a fucking bullet list. You got tabletop gaming, tabletop RPGs, right? Dungeons
Yep.
and Dragons. Maybe you got some miniatures and shit like that. You have video game RPGs, which range from Western RPGs, action RPGs, tactical RPGs, JRPGs, which is Japanese, of course. Um, you also have RPG elements in other genres. You have things like, let's say, Horizon Zero Dawn. You have The Witcher, you have Skyrim. These are all different types of genres, from typical turn-based or action or tactical. You have a different kind of feel, like an open world game, but it has RPG elements. There's a lot of that sort of. There's even card-based RPG games, that sort of thing. So there is a lot out there in the way of RPGs, which is so wild to me. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited, because when I was coming up as a kid, little bonsai, little Steven, RPGs were kind of viewed poorly. Like, I grew up in an era when, you know, so this actually applies to a lot of things, but D&D, um, and anime anime adjacent stuff like JRPGs was viewed very poorly amongst parents and other people. Like, I mean, I've talked a lot about how anime was viewed as like that cartoon porn, even though that was a generalization. But D&D had the whole thing where it's like it has demons in it. It's clearly Satan worshiping bullshit. But the same stuff was said about Harry Potter, Pokemon cards, and Magic the Gathering. So take what you get from that. But I love that in modern times it has been embraced. It is enjoyed by all walks of life. It does not just take a nerd, it does not take a geek, it does not take an otaku or a weeb to enjoy an RPG or an RPG like. So I think what I want to do is kind of talk about the different genres we've experienced, maybe a couple titles. And I think we'll start with the old school that's now new school, if you ask the right people, and that is tabletop RPGs, pen and paper RPGs, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Shadowrun, Vampire the Masquerade. Have you heard of any of these, like, these names?
I've heard of
Oh,
most of them. Yeah.
have you ever played a tabletop or a pen and paper RPG?
I've played a couple D&D games, or yeah, a couple different iterations of D&D games. But really, that's it. I've heard about the Vampire the Masquerade one, as that one's kind of had a resurgence recently,
Mm-hmm.
in both digital and I think physical media. But other than that, the other ones I've only heard in name. I haven't actually seen in action. What about you? What have you put on the papers?
So I'm an avid player of D&D. I've been playing D&D since second edition, which was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I
Oh
actually remember.
wait, do you still play it?
Yeah, I absolutely still play
Oh,
Dungeons and Dragons.
I gotta go
Uh,
talk to my church about this.
don't you dare! I've had to fend off enough Crusaders to fill a lifetime. You know what's even worse, and no one ever expects
Hmm.
the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh,
Sorry, I couldn't help but make that joke. I know it's old as
wow,
fuck,
man.
as an old as fuck joke, but
2005 called. They want their jokes
whatever.
back.
Get the fuck out of here. So I still play Dungeons and Dragons. Started out in second edition, and I argue that it's a much more approachable of a game these days. But for those that don't know, Dungeons and Dragons is a pen and paper RPG. There is several rule tomes, as I like to call them, because they're like multiple hundred pages deep. Now, a lot of times people are intimidated by this fact because it seems that you have to read a library to play a game, and you don't. The game is all about telling a story, and there are dice rolls to determine how certain actions go while you're living that story. And one of the things is like it's really hard to it's interesting to talk about it because these days with pen and paper RPGs, you have a lot of people who have played video games, so they're used to concrete rules. And Dungeons and Dragons and Vampire the Masquerade and a lot of these other pen and paper RPGs are actually very flexible. As long as you can kind of explain what you're doing and roll a dice, you can make it work. um, in my opinion, these kinds of RPGs are far more about storytelling and imagination than they are about mechanics. But they are primarily a role that you play, and that stands the test of time of basically what a role playing game is. And it was the first attempt, in my opinion. It's still like one of the most traditional attempts at getting people to play a character, to fill in a role and enjoy it. Like, this is your escape, this is your fantasy. um and it can be a fun group activities too. And that's one of the things I love about this RPG genre is it's imaginative and fun, but it's social at the same time, and it doesn't have to be so concrete. I mean, like, the sky's the limit with this game. I remember I ran a game that was all new players. They had never played Dungeons and Dragons. As a matter of fact, they really didn't even want to read the book to start with, and I made that possible. Like, that's when you're a dungeon master for one of these games, you are the storyteller. You're the one that makes things work, and so you can be flexible and make the game enjoyable. Like like you said you played a couple D&D games, right?
Mhm.
Like, what was your experience of that?
It was fun. It was just like that. It was flexible. It was a lot of creativity to it. It was literally you go in a bar. What happens next? I'm gonna go punch on that guy and grab me a beer, and like you could do that as long as you roll the dice and everything works out in your favor. And if
Mm-hmm.
not, then it's you got to pay the price of your risk.
There's
Um,
consequences for if you fail, but that's the thing is sometimes, and that's what I love about this, is if you have a really good DM, consequences can lead in other directions for your story or your characters. It's not just like I tried to punch this guy and then he punched me back and I lost three health. You could have a situation where I tried to punch this guy and he punched me back and he said, "You have a square jaw. It's strong. I can tell you're a strong fighter yourself. I have a job for you." Like, so you can now take your characters in a completely different direction simply because you tried to be a badass and it got your ass handed to you. It's not always cut and dry, and it depends on the people playing. I think that's what's enjoyable. It's what got me into role playing games in the first place. But then we got into some other things, which was when I owned a Super Nintendo. I discovered JRPGs,
oh yeah.
a series of games which, in traditional sense, is very much like other, like even Western RPGs. If we're being honest, you take on the role of a character within a story that's already been written. So you're no longer telling the story; somebody else is telling the story, and you're playing out on their mechanics, on their screen, on their characters, and it's a lot of fun. I'd say that my first JRPG that I ever played was Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy IV was the first one. I think I rolled into Final Fantasy VI after that, then into Chrono Trigger and Secret of Mana. Like, this was like that golden era of JRPGs on the Super Nintendo. So I was very much in the right place at the right time. Like, what would you say? Like, so JRPGs are just like, honestly, they don't really differentiate from Western RPGs in a big way, in my opinion. Sure, there's definitely some nowadays. There's definitely some more like anime centric and like otaku centric, kind of like very Japanese experiences. But back in the day, they were pretty standard sword and sorcery kind of fun things, and you got into some more complicated stuff like Earthbound, and things like that. But it's funny because one of my favorite games that from that era is Secret of Evermore, which played a lot like Legend of Mana. Sorry, Secret of Mana, but I think it was made by a Western company. So it's always really fun because people think that's a JRPG, and I'm pretty sure it's not. But what was
Legend of
your first?
Mana?
No, Secret of Evermore.
Oh,
So what was your first JRPG?
I think it is Dragon Quest 3 for the Game Boy Color
Really?
that we had. Me and my brother, when we got our Game Boys, we got Pokemon Yellow, Blue, and then Dragon Quest 3. And I mean, we weren't ready for Dragon Quest at all at that point in our lives.
Oh yeah,
We never beat it. So when I play it here at some point, it'll be my first time beating it. I'm so super excited, but I'm holding
you
it in
played the
reserves
remasters, right?
of Dragon Quest 3.
Oh well, the Dragon Quest, the first three Dragon Quests, they released those remastered versions
Oh
of them.
yeah, or yeah. So they're just ports of the mobile port.
Oh, nice.
Or I guess that's a remaster. I don't know. I played the first two. I have such high expectations of the third one that I'm holding off until I'm ready.
You
So
are a
I know it's going
DQ,
to be a
a
what?
DQ fanboy to the T.
Oh yeah. And actually, so you were talking about the Western and JRPGs. I watched a video from Extra Credits that kind of explained a big difference in them. Um, and what it is character itself, or at least what they elaborated on. So if you take a game, and I'm just going to pick two, one being Skyrim and the other one being Dragon Quest 11, just for example. So Dragon Quest 11 is clearly our JRPG, and what makes it a JRPG, according to Extra Credits, if I took all the notes correctly from there, is that it's a set path that you are going down and you are experiencing it. The game is the vessel for you to experience a story in. Where if you take something like Skyrim, where you kind of manicure and you build a life and a quest of your own in, that's where it kind of becomes that Western RPG. It's that
Oh,
freedom of choice and freedom of lifestyle kind of that you get to live in and play. And that's where the two differentiate, apart from obvious styles.
yeah.
But
I mean, that's a solid point. If you look at things like Ultima, Might and Magic, Sky, like Elder Scrolls games, most of that stuff allows you to like. Come on, let's even go back to EverQuest and some of the early MMOs. Um, they allowed you to do a lot of things that were up to you, whereas JRPGs tended to have a beginning, a middle, and an end,
mhm,
and you played you filled the role of those characters, whereas in most Western ones you are the role and you decide what kind of actions you take. Like, do you join the Dark Brotherhood, or do you know rescue the Emperor? Like, you can decide to do a lot of things. um Whereas in the JRPGs, it is pretty much like you said, like well, based on this video that you're talking about.
yeah, that
uh
they said it was a little bit more cut and dry on the
mhm.
JRPG side, where you have a little bit more flexibility with the Western RPGs. But
That's a solid point.
I liked it. I thought it explained why I don't really like Western RPGs. I don't like choices in my games. I make enough choices in real life, so I would rather I'd rather just go and get from
So
my.
you have choice paralysis, don't you?
It depends if I feel like it's gonna have a significant outcome, or if like I don't know what it's going to do and I wasn't expecting it. Um, like if I was playing the what was it? What did we just finish playing? Fire Emblem Three Houses, and you just finished the Black Eagles route. If I got
Yeah.
to the point where it said this will affect the outcome of the game, and I
Hmm.
wasn't expecting that, I probably would have stopped. Whoa, I'm not ready for a choice like this right now.
I'll be
It,
honest with you. I grabbed it. I went and talked to somebody, and I was like, I still need to do things, and I actually missed out on the opportunity to level up a couple ranks on things because I went and talked to a character and was like, "You have to make a choice right now. Like, I can't back out of this and like go finish what I'm doing and then come back to it. It was like, this is your choice now. If you say yes, it goes this way. If you say no, it goes this way. There is no backing out, nothing you can do. So that was a very jarring moment. As a matter of fact, I've had to fight with my completionist like nature on a lot of things like that. I mean, there's definitely a little bit more of a branching path in Japanese games these days than there was in the past.
Yeah.
But Western RPGs have lived and breathed and died and everything by that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I lean towards JRPGs like you were talking about, because it's tough to make a choice for me. Even in games where they're pretty kind of like left and right or middle, like Mass Effect. Mass Effect threw me for a loop for a good long while because I was always like, oh man, what do I choose? Because I think I overthought the nature of the answers.
Yeah.
So I would get to a choice and I'm like, I don't really know. I'm just going to try not to be an asshole, I guess. Like, and how does this affect the game? Are my stats still good? Are they better? Like, I get real bad anxiety about that. And, that's the thing is I think I've had to really fight with myself in my tendencies in gaming when it comes to those kinds of Western RPG, choice mechanics. Cause there are some games that they do it over and over and over all throughout the game. And I had to work really hard just to be like, you know what, grab it, own it, be done with it.
Yeah. And I just don't like it. I'd rather just read, hey, this is what's happening. Like Final Fantasy VII is perfect. It's just I'm witnessing Cloud and all these shenanigans, and I don't need to make choices here. This is already written. It's
Yeah,
great.
and there are exceptions to the rule, because I think things like Diablo 3, for instance, they have that same thing going on, where you are playing a story from beginning to end, and that brings me to an action RPG, because it is very much an action RPG. It's a lot of hack and slash, clicking buttons. You're very action oriented with your fingers, and you're roaming around. Things a little more real time, and I love that genre if it's done well.
That's fair. No, that if it's handled well and you can move and everything reacts perfectly, then it's a great experience. Something like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, those are really good action RPGs, or even stuff like Dark Souls, The Witcher, Monster Hunter World, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is, there's a multitude. Like, that's what's funny is, like, I kind of like thought for a second, I'm like, Bayonetta and Devil May Cry are not action RPGs, but no, they are. They are. You earn experience by getting the different kinds of little, like, I guess currency, or like, I guess they're blood gems or something like that in Devil May Cry.
Gems, orbs, yeah,
Yeah, whatever it is. And then you use those to level up your skills or your, stats when you use guns or kicks or whatever. That is very much an RPG element in what most people would consider an action adventure game. I think that classifying it as an action RPG is a solid win, honestly.
oh yeah,
Wow, so good. I never thought of it like that, but it's fantastic. Dark Souls, those games are punishing as hell, but they are great RPGs, and I actually think they fit very much in that kind of like, you know, taking on a role, because you never learn about the main character like in any depth as far as I'm aware of. You take on that role. That is you going on this adventure, and I think that's really well done too. Action RPGs for me are basically what allows you to break out of the rut that sometimes you can get when you play the same type of game too much. Like, so say you play a bunch of turn-based RPGs and things like that, and you're like, I think I'm getting tired of RPGs. Action RPGs are like there to let you like tap buttons and get excited about shit. That's
yeah,
what they're there for. I absolutely feel that. Like, and there's things like Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles is like a good mix of action RPG and just like everything else. It brings me to the topic of MMORPGs, because I actually think Xenoblade Chronicles is kind of like a single player MMORPG. You roam around a beautiful world. You take on quests, and you go do these things. Like, sometimes you're collecting items or killing a certain amount of this or that. But whereas in an MMO, the story exists over a long period of time as you level up your character and travel around the world and go to different stuff. I think there's more active story going on in something like Xenoblade Chronicles versus what an MMO is. Like, MMO, your story exists in the bubble of the characters you're talking to for that quest. Like, I don't know. What do you think? I feel like I've been talking on forever.
no, you're good. Xenoblade Chronicles is something that's a really good grab bag of a shit ton of genres, really. I imagine if you were to take a look at a lot of them, especially something like action RPGs, MMO, single player RPGs, just any letters you could really throw at Xenoblade specifically. Um, but I guess one thing that always throws me off or that turns me off to certain RPGs is sandbox RPGs. Uh, those are ones I'm really not partial
Oh
to at
yeah.
all.
So Elder Scrolls is definitely not on your playlist.
No, so apart from it being a Western RPG, like I don't like the choices, but it's also too much. It's too big of a world. I can't go around and do all this. Your point A and your point B are way too far, and there's too many different lines and dots that can happen in between.
Oh, absolutely. I think I remember starting Skyrim and getting literally just distracted with side quests.
Yeah,
If the main story had a time limit before someone died, they would be dead days ago. That's how bad I get distracted on those games. This brings me to an interesting question in terms of like sandbox RPGs. Would you consider Breath of the Wild a sandbox RPG?
oh for sure.
Like
That's
that game had some serious time into it. I think I played like I think somewhere in like 80 hours so far, and I stopped, and I still have plenty to do in this game. And I feel like I kind of want to like go back to it eventually, but it's tough at the 80 100 hour mark to go like, okay, I still there's still a lot of these temples left. There's
there's the
Korok seeds.
temples, the dragons, the Korok seeds. There's a lot to do in that game, and
Yeah.
that's if you don't even have the DLC too.
Yeah, I can't
It's
even think about the DLC. There are places I have not gone yet in this world, and that game is great. I love that game,
oh
but
yeah.
it's kind of hard for me to pay attention that long. I may have a problem. I don't know.
No, it's like that for me. Like Xenoblade Chronicles when that came out. Um, so my son was born, and it was easy for me to get through that and play it because literally once we brought him home, I started Xenoblade Chronicles, and I got to play in increments whenever he needed to take a nap, whenever we were doing something because he was just a little baby. So I just
Yeah,
put him on my chest, and we just went. He went to sleep. I'll sit there and play Xenoblade Chronicles for an hour or two at a time, and it was easy to kind of mix that up and play that to certain chapters and points because I knew it was going to be an hour 20 adventure going into it, and so this kind of goes back to backlog managing, where I normally plan my interim game in between whatever I'm going to be doing. So, like I'm doing my Final Fantasy VII, I did with I planned to beat another game in between it. So I just finished Stubbs the Zombie, Resident Evil 7, or Resident Evil Revelations. I did the same thing with Xenoblade Chronicles because I knew once I got to that 50-hour mark, I was going to be tired of it, or I could be tired of it. So I
hmm
refreshed, beat something else. Actually, Battle for Bikini Bottom is what I beat. I remember.
that's right. The SpongeBob rehydrated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I played that and beat it. That was a good action adventure RPG I played. Um, got through that. I don't think I collected everything. I didn't 100% it. I don't remember where I messed up. I think
it's
I was
okay.
tired of it. I think I was
No,
done.
nothing wrong with being a failure.
Yeah. No. Oh, no change. No change. so,
Yes.
so I was able to go back, but it's just mixing up my, I guess, my palate so that I can make sure my tastes are interesting still, or that
I
I
think
stay on eating the same dish for months.
yeah, I mean that's a solid bet. Like as adults that have responsibilities and children and things like that, which I always hate saying because I'm really not that responsible. You plan out the things you do, and I think that framing what you do, and especially in RPGs, like these games are like come on, I think this was playing Fire Emblem in a week reminding me how much it is important to kind of space out and plan your gaming to a degree because I did 60 hours of gameplay in 1 week. And don't get me wrong, I loved that game, but there was definitely some points where I was like, all right, go, like let's get through this, I don't want to play anymore. I need a break, I need like a pizza or something, so I feel like you enjoy something like an RPG more. The story, the characters stick with you more. This is that same thing I was talking about with like YouTube videos and watching anime and playing a game at the same time. You don't want to get to the point where you're not absorbing the story or the characters because that's the point of an RPG. That experience, that story, those characters, they are the reason why you play these types of games. So if you're at the point where you don't care anymore, then you need to take a break.
Yeah.
This is also one of those things about MMORPGs that I like. I think MMORPGs are fantastic in one sense because I think it's cool to have a vast world you can immerse yourself in. There's all these cool activities to do. There is a story. I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy 14, as a matter of fact, but I also don't think it should be your entire life. And that's the thing, is like those types of games are built for you to play every day, every like for hours on end. It's the same thing about Genshin Impact and stuff like that. Great games, but I don't know how beneficial it is to play every day. And if you don't get a little tired of those characters, or you get a little tired of that story, and especially if you have to pay a monthly fee, it gets to be a little more challenging. You start viewing your story and your characters in this world you're supposed to be exploring and embracing more as a job. I had to
Yeah.
get my money's worth, and that's always a really tough one. It's actually why I tend to lean towards free to play MMORPGs on occasion, because I don't feel nearly as like, if I drop this game, no big deal. I haven't lost money or investment or anything like that. But when
Right.
you play something with a monthly fee, it gets a little tough.
No, that sounds rough. I don't like that obligation. That hurts me. But the way I play games is just one at a time anyway. I
Hmm.
can't juggle a game, but I don't juggle two games at a time. If I put a game on hold, it's because I'm playing another game to cleanse the palate. But that's just part of my plan. I may just be a little bit too. I may just be a little bit too in the weeds, but I try to have that foresight. But
Yeah,
I can't juggle games. I'll forget things. I won't keep track.
I struggle with this the thing about MMORPGs, because like I said, I love 14, and Melissa and I are huge fans of it. Uh, we play as much as we can, but it's also really hard when you have an RPG or a game that's endless. I feel the same way I do about MMORPGs as I do live service games, as they call them,
Hmm.
like Destiny 2, Avengers, The Division 2. These games do have like kind of this like chunk of gameplay that is like kind of like what would be the meat of the game. But there's stuff at the end that like if you play every day, you get this. If you play every day, you can do this. You got to be there for the events. It feels like a FOMO kind of like baiting sort of thing, and I really don't like being baited by my games, which
Yeah.
is why I struggle with Genshin, because I like the gameplay and I like the character designs, but I don't like being baited. Uh, Such a hard struggle.
Yeah. I can't imagine, or I try not to imagine at least. I stick away. I normally stay away from those kind of things. I didn't think Genshin was going to be that way, but sure enough, it is.
The fact of the matter is, like, Genshin could have made just like uh multiple entries into like a single player experience, and probably, but let's be realistic. The gotcha and the mobile style market has made them billions. I don't fault them for it, and they continue to produce a good product. I feel like there's not a lot in terms of an end game. So once you get to a certain point in the game, you're just collecting waifus and trying to get incremental increases in power so you can complete events to get more currency for waifus. So yeah, like
Oh
it
yeah,
seems
you got
it
it.
seems
You got
pointless
it.
at that end game point. Now and then what you're waiting for. This happens with MMORPGs like Final Fantasy 14 as well. Is essentially you're waiting for the next patch drop so you can get a little bit more story, or you get an extra feature. Like for instance, there's patches that drop in Final Fantasy 14 in between expansion packs, and what a lot of like longtime players do is they reach in-game point, they were like, all right, I'm satisfied, so they'll stop playing. Patch drops, they'll play for about a week, finish all the patch content, and then drop it again until the next one comes out. And that's the same kind of experience I see in like Genshin and a couple other games. So,
I imagine
but
that's probably the ideal way to play it. Really.
yeah, it's the healthiest way to play it, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it is apparently it's a pretty lucrative like streaming opportunity. It's popular in streaming circles, so that's, hey, do you boo?
Yeah. Whatever it takes.
But yeah, I think like I feel like how do you feel about tactical RPGs? Like Fire Emblem was a tactical RPG.
I've grown more fond of them over time. Um, it just kind of depends on what all else is added into them. Like Mario and Rabbids, I really liked Mario and Rabbids. It was just goofy enough,
Hmm.
but it was also pretty tactical. You had a lot of strategies you had to do, and the puzzles in it were intense. It was very difficult to try to figure out how I'm going to get these characters across maps and how I'm going to destroy everybody. So it was fun doing that. And playing Fire Emblem was fun. I liked having all my characters, and the maps were just intriguing. Like just figuring out how I'm going to get myself out of this one. But
I love tactical RPGs, but they tax my my patience.
yeah, yeah,
They take so long in some of those battles.
they do. I even, what is it? If I had one long boss fight in Final Fantasy VII, it took longer than like 4 or 5 minutes, and I was like, "This is
Even at 3 times.
yeah, yeah." Or no. When I'm on boss fights, I take
Slow
it.
down.
Yeah, slow it down. I don't run that risk. But I'm like, man, this is taking way too long. I got to get on to the next story beat. I gotta keep going. I got games to play. But yeah, sometimes they do drag on. But that's just kind of risk of the thing. I got the XCOM collection
Oh,
a couple
nice.
weeks ago because I was just curious. I was like, I'm feeling these strategy tactical games, and I think I may like XCOM because it's a lot like Mario and Rabbids.
Oh yeah.
I like sci-fi settings, so I kind of think I like this.
I think you'll enjoy XCOM quite a bit. Man, okay. Am I missing any RPGs? I've kind of touched on several RPGs.
Let me check my list. Um, the last thing I have on here is roguelikes.
Oh man, roguelikes. Uh, I am a huge fan of roguelikes. I don't know why. Like you think the repetition and the constant like losing until you get strong enough to get further to lose to get strong enough to get further, like kind of is that same kind of like thing I was talking about, like the end game in Genshin or MMORPGs. But for some reason, I'm a fucking fan. Dead Cells, fantastic. Love that game.
What?
Hades, fantastic game as well. Um, one of my favorite roguelikes is
Don't,
actually is
don't, don't say it.
what? And I'm
Don't
not
say
gonna
it.
say. I'm not gonna say
Okay.
anything. I'm not gonna say it.
All
My
right.
favorite, one of my favorites, like this is literally like I have the opportunity to make a joke. I'm not gonna make the joke. Is on the Nintendo DS there was a series called Izuna the Unemployed Ninja. Um,
I don't know that one.
yeah, so it's one of those ones that's in the same vein as like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or Shiren the Wanderer and that sort of thing. But Izuna the Unemployed Ninja was a tongue-in-cheek comedy mystery dungeon game, and I had a lot of fun with it back in the day on my DS. It's very approachable. It's not overly hard, um, and I had a lot of fun with it. It's got a cute little anime ninja girl and her friends, and they just make jokes, and even the items you pick up and the equipment you get are jokes. So it's really a lot of fun to get into. Even the story is just a huge freaking joke. So it was a lot of fun. It made a roguelike a lot more approachable because it didn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I also picked up what is it? Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon. Everybody.
Um,
Ah, what do you think of that? What do you think of that?
I didn't like it, but
Really?
yeah, I like the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, and I think I only liked it because it was Pokemon, and so I
Yeah,
tried
you
the
do have
Choco.
a
I have an affinity,
yeah.
and so I got Chocobo Mystery Dungeon. Everybody when it came out, I was like, oh man, another Mystery Dungeon game, cool. And I started playing it, and I was like, I hate this a lot. I am not enjoying this in the slightest. And like you're just the chocobo and you keep having to travel through time and save people and you have to wear different outfits and there's not recruitable enemies and I hate this. And oh, you're giving me quizzical looks. Maybe I didn't get
Like
far enough.
you probably didn't get far enough. You can change your class quite a bit, and you can recruit enemies and take them
Uh,
along. I just hate to admit it that the characters you get to take along with you that are from the story are still far more powerful than the enemies until later.
wait, is oh okay. Well, it's not Pokemon, so I don't care.
Look, I love the fact that it's somewhere in the beginning of this podcast, you made a comment that you were getting a little tired of Pokemon. Like you think you were past Pokemon. And you've done like 3 Nuzlocks since then.
That's how I keep it fresh, though. I still want to play Pokemon, but of the Pokemon that's coming out, I know it's not satisfying what I need. I want, I guess. So I just make challenges and just that's how I do it to myself. Like right now, oh, that's another what I'm playing is that Pokemon Wooloo challenge where I'm playing Pokemon Sword with a Wooloo, and it's hard. It's not going
Yeah.
well. Not
You
going
know,
well.
it's not going to. That's a tough challenge. Like you usually choose like your base kind of like element like grass, water, or fire and do your challenge. Now you're messing with something completely different.
I thought it was grass. I didn't know
Nope.
it was normal.
But
But
yeah.
we're gonna see. I just got my first gym badge and I had to work for it.
Yeah, you
I
did.
had to cheese a lot of potions to make sure that I stayed alive, but it was rough.
Oh man. RPGs is one of my favorite genres of all time. There are so many facets to it. There's a lot of things to discuss when it really comes to it. I think there's a lot of games that really qualify as RPGs, much like our your discussion of or comment about Devil May Cry and Bayonetta being RPGs. Hard agree on that one. But I think that really kind of wraps up a generic kind of overview of RPGs, like how we feel about RPGs, and I think there's definitely room for more conversation about it. I'd actually be interested in seeing if anybody in the Reddit wants to comment on that sort of information. Like, what do they think about RPGs? Like, what's their opinions? What are their recommendations and things they like to share or they like to see us talk about, for that matter.
Yeah.
But hey, all in good time. I think that kind of wraps up our RPG talk for this evening. But there's plenty of other evenings to talk about more RPGs, more anime, more video games, more fun nerdy ass shit like usual.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna tag on that roguelike one real quick. One, the
Oh, I'm so
only
sorry. I
you're
ran
fine.
off with the exit.
It's okay. The only roguelike I've actually enjoyed is the Binding of Isaac, just because it's kind of got some like fucked up like his like religious imagery in it, and like it's just really funny, like
That
in
is
a
a
bad
unique
way.
game. That's
Yeah,
a unique game. It reminds me of a twin stick shooter, but with roguelike elements to it.
yeah,
Because
it's
he just
neat.
runs around and like throws things, but then there's like all these power ups and
And he
but you're
cries. It's all his
oh yeah,
tears.
it's just tears. Like there's like this deep like fucked up story going on, and I like he's like locked in the basement by his mom or something like that.
By
It's
his like religious cult mom, and
yeah,
you end up unlocking like all the disciples of Jesus, and you find it's horrible. It
yeah.
is
It's
horrible.
but it's not horrible because it is one of the most popular games of all time.
Oh yeah, no, it's not a horrible game.
It's
It's
just it got some pretty
it's
fucked up imagery, that's for
yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah.
It's
But all right,
plenty of
man.
gross moments.
Yeah, that's all I got. You got anything else for me, boss?
Not much. I think we've talked a lot about where you can listen to us, and we got a Twitter, and we're on Reddit. We don't have an official Reddit or anything like that, but we just we're in our anime somewhere, and they're like asking questions and begging people to give us information.
That's it. I
I
normally post in the anime Reddit. I normally try to gather some questions there.
Hey, it's fun, and that's the important thing. But no, I think that about wraps it up. I've had a great time. I'm looking forward to more, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. All right. Bye.
All right, bye.